Recent figures suggest around 18,000 people in Scotland experience problem gambling. A further 68,000 are at risk of moderate gambling problems. It's well recognised that problem gambling can lead to mental health problems, low self-esteem, stress, anxiety and depression. Ross Kemp's gambling addiction took him to a very dark and difficult place, but he managed to find a way out, and he's with me to share his story. So if you're listening to this, in the grips of an addiction yourself, there is hope. As always, if it feels too difficult to listen to this, press pause and get some support. You'll find the links to Mikeysline in the show notes. I'm Penny Stewart, and this is Speaking of Suicide. Ross, thanks for letting me come and
no problem, Penny. Thank you.
Meet you in your house. I guess, the starting point, I suppose, is where it all began. How did you get into gambling?
So, I think looking back, I wouldn't have necessarily thought that it was gambling at the time, but when I go all the way back to my younger years, when I was probably a toddler, maybe a little bit older than a toddler, when you were going away caravan holidays and whatnot, and you're going to the amusement parks, and you've got coins, you've got 10p coins and 2p coins and that, and you start using the likes of the arcade machines, and that's where probably it started, not as an addiction, but probably started as gambling, but not necessarily knowing that it was gambling at that time. Just playing the likes of the machines, and also the grab machines where you've got the soft toys.
Oh, yeah.
And it'd be always wanting, going to my mum or dad and saying, could I get another 20 pence, another 50 pence, so I can get another couple of goes and stuff like that. But at that age, you're none the wiser that you're really what's happening.
Yeah, but it sounds like you remember finding it a thrill or exciting or something about it, even at that stage.
Yeah, obviously in these sort of places there's a lot of noises, a lot of flashing lights, and a lot of kind of anticipation building up if you get a chance to get some more coins back, or you get a fluffy toy or whatever like that. You're happy at the end of the day, and that's what that's where it kind of goes back to, I think.
So you had really early roots, but then when did it surface in a more recognisable form as gambling, do you think?
I think, so from kind of that age, and then there was little other things like the Grand National and stuff like that, where my parents or my granddad or that would be putting bets on, and I would maybe get asked to choose a horse and stuff like that, and so I'd choose a horse, probably orange colours because it was my favourite football team, stuff like that. And then probably as I got a bit older, maybe into my early teens, I would say, when I started working and stuff, about 14, 15, I was working in a local hotel, and they had a slot machine, and it kind of, from there I would say it probably stemmed. After work, would go play the slot machine, and that, not being old enough, would still, me and a couple of people would go along and play it, and nothing happened because we worked there and nobody said nothing.
I was interested, I was going to ask whether it was something that you did on your own, or it was something that was tied into what other people around you were doing as well, a kind of social side to it.
I think to start with it probably was a wee bit sociable, but then as things carried on, it got a bit obviously just isolated and on my own. And then probably from after that I would start going, maybe when I was 17 or so, I'd go into the bookies and start doing the likes of your weekend fixtures, picking the football and stuff like that every weekend as well, and then it just kind of built up gradually, and then into my probably early 20s I started doing like online gambling, and that found out about online gambling. I had a computer in the house at home, so I was on the computer at home and stuff, and then that's where I kind of got hooked, I would say, and it was just I'd just say the anticipation of putting money on and then the build up and thinking that you could get something back, but a lot of the time, well, most of the time or none of the time you don't. And that's kind of where it took off, I think, really in my early 20s.
So how often were you gambling? How big a habit was it?
I think probably in my late teens to early 20s, it probably wasn't constant. It wasn't like, it was maybe I was going to work, doing an apprenticeship and stuff, and then I maybe had my first mobile phone at the time, but I wasn't gambling on my phone or anything at that time, because I think it was one of the old Nokias or something. You never had the access to internet like you do now. So it was probably when I was getting home, I was going on the computer and going on and doing it online. So it would probably be most evenings, I would imagine. And then there'd be the likes of the times where the phone would ring and the internet would cut out, because it's not like now you've got the Wi-Fi it's like the old. So it was waiting on my mum or dad to hang up the phone to find out what was going to happen next. And that kind of built up excitement as well, because the screen would freeze and then once it reconnected and stuff. And so it was all kind of from there on. And then, yeah, right the way through, probably just in a circle through my mid-20s and whatnot, it just kind of went back and forward. Payday loans, bank loans, taking out the likes of things like that to fund the gambling as well.
So at the beginning, was it just small
Yeah.
amounts?
Yeah, it was like I would imagine most people, it'll just be manageable. It'll be what you could afford, and then it started becoming more and more, and yeah, it became, I couldn't afford it, obviously,
Yeah.
at the time.
The more you put on, did that change the excitement and anticipation, do you think?
Yes, certainly for a spell, because obviously there was more a risk and more chance that I was going to get more back. But a lot of it was, I don't know how to explain it, but I was never ever really seeing real money as such, because it was always just going from bank account to the online and stuff like that. I was never really seeing physical cash, which made it even harder to understand why I was doing it, almost, so to speak. And there would never be really any period of time where I would take money back out. So it was always kind of given, so to speak. So it was, it was strange.
At what point did you start to think that it was a problem? And why did you think it was a problem?
I think probably maybe about the age of mid-20s, and I think as well as myself, I knew I was gambling too much, and I think my parents were aware I was still living at home. I didn't really have much money left to do anything or anything like that, because I was gambling all the time, and I was just isolating myself, so to speak, maybe, or I'd be on my phone as well. Started on my phone, started gambling and stuff. And it'd be pretty noticeable, and they kind of noticed. And my mum and dad, they tried to help me as much as they could. They supported me. They tried, and the likes of went to Gamblers Anonymous and stuff like that. But it just nothing seemed to click, nothing seemed to work. And I didn't want to stop as well, which probably was half the battle. I would be going through to Perth to Gamblers Anonymous, and I wouldn't be going to Gamblers Anonymous. I'd be sitting in my car in the car park on my phone gambling. So, but then I'd go home. My mum would say, "How did you get on tonight?" fine, yeah, everything's fine. And that's just some of the things that happen. You just lie constantly.
So it
when
starts
you're
to
in
become hidden.
Yeah, and nobody can tell. It's not like a lot of other addictions, like alcohol and maybe drugs and eating disorders and stuff like that. You notice a visible difference, but like the gambling, it's not as easy, I don't think, to see on people until really later on.
To begin with, you obviously got rewarded by it mentally. It stimulated something in you because you keep going back to it,
Yeah.
and it's an addiction. At what point did it turn into being detrimental to your mental health and how you felt about yourself? I mean, how did you feel about the fact that you had this addiction to gambling? You didn't want to stop at that point.
I think probably like my 26, 27 or so, I was probably at an age where I was seeing some of my friends getting married and stuff like that, and other things, thinking, yeah, why am I still at home? And then thinking, oh, if I gamble, I'll get money, I can leave home and stuff. It just plays with your mind a lot, and you start thinking these things, and you get in a kind of trap almost to think, and I just was caught, and I couldn't really get out. And at that sort of age, I then realised that I had to do something, but I went to the doctors, and the firstly it took ages to get an appointment, but then the next thing was it was kind of down the route of depression, and they were looking down that, but I wouldn't have said I was particularly depressed, but I think at that kind of time, maybe 10 years ago or something, gambling wasn't as much of a talked about subject as it is now, and I think it was maybe a kind of easy kind of pass off, just to say here's some medication for being depressed, see if that helps, but it obviously never helped.
Did you admit to the doctor that you were gambling? You had a gambling problem?
I did say to the doctor, yeah. Not, I don't think maybe at the first occasion, but I went to the doctor on a number of occasions after that, and I'd mentioned about having a gambling problem, and they, to be fair, they signposted me to likes of Gamblers Anonymous, and then I did do like one-to-one counselling for a wee while with someone about addiction and stuff, but it kind of just never worked for me. It would maybe work for a period of time. There would maybe be 2 or 3 weeks. Somehow I would just think everything's going fine, all's good, and then I would just go back to it, whether it be an advert or something popped up on my phone or something on the way to work, or if I had a bad day at work or someone upset me or anything like that. And it was an easy thing to go to, and I knew it would always be there. I could depend on gambling in a way.
That's really interesting, because I'd never thought of it as being almost like an antidote to the stresses and things of life, that it would have triggers where you thought, just like someone might reach for a glass of alcohol, you'd reach for your phone and put a bet on.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and I'd spend hours on just pressing it, and it would just be constantly like repetitive, just pushing a button. Or sometimes I would just put on multi-spin or whatever, so I'd press the button once and then I'd just watch it all going down, spinning, flashing lights. Sometimes I never even watched it. I would sometimes put my phone down, go and do something else, dishes, go for a shower, stuff like that. It was crazy how it takes over you. And then there's times where driving back from work on your phone, just gambling, and just the risks that I took were, when you look back on it, were just stupid, and you think now.
You obviously took a lot of risks, because by the sound of things, you wanted to gamble. You didn't want to give it up at that point. So when did it get so bad that you thought, no, I've really got to do more about this? How bad did it get, both in terms of what you were doing in gambling, but also the impact it was having on you as a person?
It would be about 2017 into 2018, kind of. It got its worst kind of stage. I somehow managed to get actually a fair size of lump sum from the bookies into my bank account. Hunky dory, told my mum and dad and that about it, and she took it out and she was going to be dealing with it and that. And you would think, that's it, everything will be fine, stop gambling. But no, I decided that I was going to just carry on, and I just took out other bank loans, even though, so I was taking out bank loans, but then I was having to then explain to my mum for her to give me some of that money back so I could clear the bank loans, payday loans, etc., credit cards, everything like that. There was letters coming through the post all the time, just constantly missed payments, stuff like that. And
you were taking out these loans in order to gamble?
Yeah, even though I kind of had a money that I'd won, so to speak, although it wasn't really because I'd lost so much before. But I did have money there, but that was having to go back every time to pay back, and my mum and dad were trying to help me as much as I could, but that's what I think a lot of people forget, is they just see a gambler. They don't see everyone else that has a knock-on effect on the families of people. So yeah.
How worried were they?
Yeah, they were. Yeah, I think they were. I think that looking back on it now, they were really worried because they didn't know what was going on, and half the time, to be honest with you, I didn't know what was going on neither. I didn't know who I was due money to, or what companies were due money when, or anything like that, half the time. But
that's got to be a stressor.
Yes. And then also I was starting to miss days at work and stuff like that, and obviously when living at home still, it's a kind of just, there was a lot of heated arguments, I would say, and stuff as well to go with it. And then
would you miss work in order to gamble, or were you just missing work because of just the pressure of everything going on around you?
A bit of 6 and 2 3s there. There would be times where I would be up through the night gambling, like say for example on a day, maybe I knew I was getting paid the next day. I would stay up, wait for that money to come out of my bank account, and then I would gamble throughout the night, and then I'd maybe miss work the next day, or I'd go into work, but then I'd make excuses at work. I'd say, in the position that I was originally at work, I was kind of in 2 areas. So I would say to one area, I'm going there. I would say to the other area, I'm going there. And then I'd end up going away, going to the bookies or sitting in my car or whatever. So I wasn't actually maybe at work at the time, some of the times. So just things like that I look back and do. And even likes of, there was we get so copper and that models and lead models and that at work made up, and then I was responsible for taking it down to get recycled, and then the money goes back into the college accounts or back into an account, while I was putting it into my account and it wasn't going back, stuff like that. So ultimately it was stealing pretty much. It got to a stage where I was stealing. And then also as well that my mum and dad were away, and I got my dad's bank details, and I stole or pretty much used his bank details for gambling as well, which is pretty much stealing as well. So that's where I think that's where it got to the state. That's where the worst that it kind of got to.
How did you feel about yourself at that point?
I knew what I was doing was wrong, but also I was just thinking that I'll be fine, I'll be able to get money, I'll be able to pay this, I'll be able to pay that, I'll be able to, and I was just hooked. I was just, yeah, it was all the time. By that stage, I was gambling, going to the toilet to go on my phone for 20 minutes, half an hour, stuff like that, and just, yeah, I just felt without pretty bad. I didn't want to swear there, but yeah, it was. I was in a bad way at the time, and but I also never. And I thought I was being, because I had that kind of stage, I'd applied to Gordon Moody. I thought I was kind of rationalising it all, because I'd applied. Then I'd kind of have one kind of last kind of binge or whatever, but it was just, yeah, there was no method in the madness, really.
We'll come back to explain Gordon Moody, because that really was your route out of this, what sounds to be an incredibly trapped situation. If you're listening to this and Ross's story is striking a chord with you and you need someone to talk to, then you can of course text Mikeysline. The number is 07786 207755. That's 07786 207755, or you can contact them via Messenger, webchat or WhatsApp. And the number for WhatsApp is 01463 729 000. If you're in the Highlands, you can go and visit them, of course. They are at the Hive, 4 Strothers Lane in Inverness, and they're open 7 days a week from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. All of those details and links are in the show notes. Let's come on to talk then about the turning point and how you managed to start to step away from what sounds to be, you know, yeah, you were really in the grip of an addiction without any doubt. First of all, what was it that made you finally decide that you were going to stop doing this?
I don't actually know. I just think it was just enough had become enough. I was just getting myself in a state where I couldn't think properly anymore. I couldn't face people properly. I couldn't look at people and like anymore. I was lying to a lot of people, even good friends and stuff, just to basically get money off of them. And I think that was the stage. And I looked up, I remember going online, computer at work, I think it was about October time or something like that. And I went online and I typed in gambling treatment or whatever, and not a great deal. There wasn't much at all out there. There was places which were absolutely extortionate and stuff like that. And I was thinking of, I'll maybe not manage or whatever, and then I scrolled down a wee bit and I seen Gordon Moody came up, and that's where I clicked on it. And I don't even think I read anything really about it. I just seen the bit that said something like to put your name down or reference or whatever. And I just clicked on that, autofill my details, and then after that I just kind of left it. And then I think I carried on with my day and probably started gambling again. And then I got an email back, and it said something about length of time. It could take 3 months or something at the time, and I hadn't heard anything. And then after what had happened regarding my dad's bank details and stuff like that, I'd contacted them just prior to that, and they'd said they had a space available in, would have been February 19.
Tell me a bit more about the Gordon Moody Centre, because it's something I'd never heard of until we met. explain it for any of us who are,
Yeah.
are just not familiar with it at all.
Yeah, so I didn't really know what to expect, to be honest with you, but basically went down on the Monday, and I think it was about 10 o'clock, had stayed down because it was based in Dudley,
Right.
down in the West Midlands.
Yeah.
They've now got other ones. They've got one down in London, and I think they've got a women's centre as well now. And basically, you go into an environment. There's 3 houses, terraced houses, and you're in a house with another 3 guys that are going through gambling treatment as well, and they're all at different stages. So, in fact, I think there was four houses, sorry, because yeah, there's 3 in each house, and there was 12 at any one point. There would be 12, and then I was going in, pretty much new person, first in the door, and then there would be someone that had left the week before, and then there was someone when I went in was leaving that week.
So you were all at different stages.
So yeah, and it worked.
And so this was a residential centre, basically, for treating gambling addiction.
Yeah.
How long were you there?
Just over 3 months.
Wow.
So yeah, so a 12-week programme. I think the first 2 weeks are kind of your hardest. You've got no contact with home or anything like that. You're kind of there to just think about things, and there's nothing. It's almost. Some people say, "Oh, it's like jail or anything like that," but I don't think. I've never been to jail, so I wouldn't be able to say. But I couldn't imagine it being like that. But you're doing the likes of your own cooking, you're keeping the houses tidy yourself. You've not got someone coming round doing any of that. You're kind of having to look after yourself, look after the place, and then you do other things throughout the week. You do group classes, you have one-to-one with a therapist and stuff like that, and then you get trusted to go out and do your own shopping and stuff like that. Obviously, you're getting money, and you're having to take back the receipts and everything that's adds up and everything like that. And then at the weekend, there's not really anyone there, but you're there, and you're trusted as well.
It sounds a bit like, pushing you to be cold turkey, but in a gambling context, what was hardest about it when you were first there?
I think the hardest thing was just being away, kind of that kind of not being able to pick up my phone and look at the time or anything like that, or be able to have the kind of freedom to just kind of go out when I wanted, or know that I could just go to the shop for a can of juice, for example. I wasn't able to do things like that neither. You'd have to kind of plan and be organised, and just, I think that's kind of the one thing that I've took out of it the most, kind of planning wise and organised things.
Was your phone taken off you?
Yes, yeah, it's taken off. You would get at the end of the week, if everything was okay and stuff, not the first 2 weeks, but after that you would get a short spell, so maybe like the 3rd week you get to phone your parents or loved ones or whatever, and then slowly it built up, so by probably about your 10th or 11th week, if everything was going good, you'd maybe have your phone a lot more for a longer period, so maybe you'd get your phone over the weekend. But then you also had to watch and make sure you weren't being distracted by your phone, because you had to know that other people in there never had their phones. No, I mean, so they were kind of, you want to help them as much as well.
What do you think of what was it about the setup there that most helped you? Do you think? What did you find most useful in letting go of the gambling?
I think the way the kind of have it set up, that it's the peer support, and the kind of period of time where you've got your kind of nothing, you're kind of almost isolated in a way, and you can't do anything. And I think, yeah, the peer support from people and each other helps.
So with the peer support, that makes me wonder how lonely it was being trapped in your gambling addiction.
Yeah.
Before you went down there. Was it a lonely place?
Yes, I would say it was. It was a lot of the time I would be on my own, in my room, on my phone. And that's, yeah, I would go home from work, maybe have a shower or whatever, and then I wouldn't leave the room unless I needed toilet or anything like that, until the next morning to go to work again.
And it's not like you were hanging out with other gamblers?
No, very rarely did I go to the likes of the casinos or the bookies in the end or anything like that, or like even things like race days or anything like that. It wasn't never really something that I was ever interested in.
So what was it, do you think, about being in the environment of other people who'd had similar experiences that you found so useful?
I think just being able to relate to them, and just them saying what's maybe happened to them, and then being bits and pieces maybe that have happened similar, but everyone I think in there as well was different though, and everyone was doing different things, and the ways they were getting their money, the lies they were telling people and everything, and it was just, but you were able to take it all in and absorb it and kind of understand what they were going through, and it kind of almost made you understand yourself. You kind of were able to go, wait a minute, it's like looking in a mirror here. That's what I've been doing. That's having a knock-on effect on their family, on their children, on their lives, everything like that. So what's it doing to my family and my life? And that kind of gives you a good kind of wake-up call as well. And then, yeah, I think as well, just the way it slowly then gives you your trust back as well, by letting you go out a wee bit longer, go to shopping, go stuff like that. I think it all kind of just, it seems to work for one reason or another.
Sounds like it. You said it was also important that you were allowed time out just to be sitting with yourself and reflecting on all this and not doing very much. To me, what came into my mind when you said that was almost, it's like it's teaching yourself that it's okay to be just a bit bored and not doing stuff all the time. And I wonder if that's the thing about our phones in the modern society, is that it's like you're doing something constantly, and it's giving you permission to not.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I had a couple of jigsaws and a couple of books and couple of adult colouring in books with some choice words in them, so that helped a little bit. But it was just, they're the types of things that I wouldn't have ever done before. I wouldn't sit and do a jigsaw, or I wouldn't sit and read a book, and that's the kind of things that I wouldn't have even thought about doing.
It's like it was giving you other choices.
Yeah. And you have to, I think there's a lot of people that might think if they're gambling, they might think that's it, they're stuck in that ruck. But there's a lot more choices out there, and a lot better things that can be done.
How quickly, when you were in that environment, did you I mean, when you were there, did you still have the urge to gamble, or when you were there without your phone, with other people to talk to, other things to stimulate your mind, did you quite quickly let go of the idea of gambling? How did it come?
Yeah, I think for myself, I think I was fairly, I think maybe fairly into it, quite quick into it. I'd kind of embraced into it, thinking that day when I went in there, I'm not going to gamble again. I'm not going to gamble again. And even when we did go out and about, we went into Dudley for doing our shopping and stuff like that, there was bookies and stuff like that. There was opportunities, like you go to the into the shops and stuff. But I just never. I got quite quickly started thinking about what there was that I could lose potentially, or what there. Although I did realise that there wasn't much more, but I kind of knew that I had my family and that, and my mum and dad and brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews, etc. And they were almost relying on me. I didn't want to be coming out of there and letting people down.
Out of interest, if you don't mind me asking, did you have to pay for it?
I did, yes, but it was fortunate. My work, I was able to take the time off sick, so I got my full pay still. So pretty much all of my pay was going towards paying that. Although there was people that were on, if you were on certain benefits or that, or not working, out of work or anything like that, there is, I believe, funding for it. But unfortunately, a lot of the funding comes from gambling companies.
So it's a loop, isn't it? It's just a vicious circle.
Yep.
So you spent 3 months in the Gordon Moody Centre down in Dudley. How difficult was it to step out of that environment, which is clearly quite structured and protected and peer supported and with therapists and all these other things? You step out of there, you're back in the real world, presumably back in where you were living before, with all those triggers and potential exposure to gambling around you. Yeah. How did you cope with that transition? Was it difficult? Oh, tell me.
Well, they've got, at the Gordon Moody, they've got a thing called the halfway house, where you can actually, after your 3 months treatment, you can look and you can go in there, still down in Dudley, just kind of around the corner from the treatment centre, and you can go in there and then slowly kind of go back into normality almost. But and I had kind of thought about it and hummed and hawed and thought about it, but then I realised it's quite a bit away, the West Midlands, from up here. It wouldn't be easy for travelling up at weekends or family, and that would mean a complete new lifestyle change, just new job, everything. So I'd made the decision, spoke to my mum and dad and stuff. I was going to be coming back up the road, and then they had started looking for like a flat and stuff for me to rent and that. And when I got back, I think I was at home for maybe a couple of weeks, and then I managed to find somewhere that I was able to rent. Had to, because of my kind of credit ratings and stuff like that, I had to use my parents as kind of guarantors almost, that I would pay the rent and everything like that. But I got a flat in Perth city centre, and then that was kind of changed. That was kind of a bit of a change, lifestyle change as well. I slowly went back to work, done like a phased return to work, and I think the support I got at work as well, people were happy to see me, people were, they were proud of me and stuff as well, so that was a big thing, and I'd told myself and knew myself that it wouldn't be easy, and there's always going to be gambling everywhere you turn. You could turn the TV on right now and it might be a gambling related ad or whatever like that.
I was going to say you could put money on it, but that's the wrong thing to say, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people usually say, oh, I bet this, I bet you this, I bet you that, but it's just...
It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere, but I've just managed to, get my life back together and then add to it slowly, and now I know where I am now. There's so much, it's not even worth thinking or having any thoughts about gambling because there's far too much to lose.
On that subject, we're sitting here in your house just outside Perth, and there's a children's high chair beside me, there's a travel cot over there. Life has clearly changed quite a bit for you. Where are you at now?
So after I got out of Gordon Moody, about 6-7 months, I met Hannah just before lockdown. And we've now been married for a year and a half, I think, just over that. And we've got our little boy who's 1 and a bit years old. So yeah, things are positive, and that's the thing, you can be, it just shows that there is hope for anyone that's gambling, that it's not the end of the world. You can, if you want, you can change things, I think.
It's an amazingly, it really is an inspirational story, because it's amazing to think about where you were at and to see you here now, clearly in a happy family. What do you think, big deep question, but what do you think all this has taught you about yourself?
I think it's taught me maybe that you can be vulnerable at times. You can be vulnerable and upset and angry and every emotion under the sun. And it's just being able to deal with them emotions in the right way and not let something, an addiction or something, get in and play on them vulnerabilities, because that's what, at the end of the day, that's what will happen, and that'll just eat you alive until you manage to ultimately get out of it one way or another.
And any final thoughts for anyone who might be listening to this who has a gambling addiction and is trapped? What would you say to them?
I would say the first steps would be to speak to someone. Always speak to someone and be as open and honest as you can, because that's probably one of the hardest things, is admitting from the very start and speaking and being open and honest. I think honesty is the big thing with gambling addictions.
Ross, thank you for your honesty with me. It's been really a real insight talking to you, and I'm sure it will provide a huge amount for a lot of people listening to this.
Hopefully it helps.
Thank you. I was talking to Ross Kemp, and now here's Shona from Mikeysline with a few thoughts to take away from our conversation today.
Yeah, great to hear Ross, just so straightforward in his account of a horrific experience with gambling addiction. And I kind of just want to say Ross's words back in conclusion, because he's beautifully summarised what he's learned. He says that his experiences have taught him that you can be vulnerable at times. You can be vulnerable and upset and angry and every emotion under the sun. And it's just about being able to deal with these emotions in the right way, rather than letting an addiction or something else get in the way of managing difficult emotions. So for Ross, as he said throughout the podcast, that gambling was for him a way of suppressing difficult emotions or dealing with difficult emotions. And at the end he said, the addiction will just eat you alive until you manage to get out of it. I'm so glad that he got out of it, and seems to be building just a beautiful life. And he says that the way out of it for him was, first of all, being honest, and how his addiction, how gambling can lead to so much deceit, lies, dishonesty, and the antidote to that being honesty. So please, as he says, as I say, please speak to someone and be as open, as honest as you can. Speaking to the right person, you're not going to be faced by lots of judgment, probably most of the judgment's within you. And I had a quick look at the Gordon Moody website, having heard his interview, and there's so much useful information on there. If you're listening to this and you're unsure, do I have a gambling addiction or do I just like it a lot? There's a really helpful self-assessment on there that you can do. And also they've got confidential weekly support peer groups that you can, by text. So there's other ways of getting support depending on where you are in your addiction. And of course, Mikeysline is there for you also.
Thanks, Shona. We will, of course, put links to Gordon Moody as well as all the Mikeysline details in the show notes. Just a reminder, if you need someone to talk to and Mikeysline is where you want to go for that, it's 07786 20 77 55. If you're by text, you can contact them via Messenger, webchat or WhatsApp as well. And the number for WhatsApp is 01463 729 000. Or if you're in the Highlands, you can go and visit them. They're at the Hive, 4 Strothers Lane, Inverness, and they're open 7 days a week from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. All those details and links, as I said, are in the show notes. Speaking of Suicide, it's funded by Mikeysline, and the platform is sponsored by Highland-based family firm D&D Paving Limited. If you'd like to sponsor an episode, do get in touch, or if you'd like to tell us your story, we'd love to hear from you. Speaking of Suicide is produced by Adventurous Audio Limited.